Rain fell in broad, dripping sheets outside the company's glass-fronted conference room. Inside, the atmosphere was nothing like warm or dry. It was cold, clinical, unforgiving. "Why is your son here, Maria?" The voice cut into the silence like a scalpel. Leticia Hernandez, the HR manager, stood at the head of the table, power in her posture, steel in her tone, her arms folded, eyes unyielding. Maria Lopez, standing at the far end near the door, held her young son, Elias. He was fever hot and pale, burrowing into her blouse, as if that small movement carried her strength. His breathing was ragged, but she offered a fragile smile to Leticia. "He's sick," Maria whispered, voice cracked and urgent. "I had no one else." "Company policy is clear," Leticia replied. "No children allowed on site. This is a workplace, not a daycare." A hush fell. Co-workers glanced at their phones, avoided her eyes. Maria felt the walls closing in. Her footsteps grew heavy. "I just needed to finish my shift," she managed, voice trembling. Leticia's tone clipped. "Your employment is terminated, effective immediately." With finality, she turned her back. Maria hugged Elias tighter, his head warm and damp. Without a word, she walked out into a cold, gray afternoon. Rain pelted her borrowed coat. Umbrellas passed without a glance. "Mommy, I'm cold," Elias whimpered. She paused, balancing him against her chest. "We'll be okay," she whispered fiercely. "I will not give up." They stepped off the curb. Maria's phone had died. Her car was in the shop. Her savings gone. Each droplet of rain seemed to mock her reality, but defiance welled inside her. Without options, she clung to one promise: survival for her son. A luminous cafe beckoned across the street. Its window glowed with laughter and warmth. She stopped. Should she ask shelter? Pride fought fear. She walked past. "That's your mantra, Mommy," she said, tired and fierce. "I will not give up." Somewhere overhead, a gust rattled signs. The rain pounded harder. They ducked into a convenience store awning. Maria pressed Elias to her chest. He gripped her necklace, her last thread of hope. "Promise," she breathed, more than just to him. She squeezed his hand. They stood under rain, wet but unbroken. Night fell, unkind and relentless. They carried resumes, fraying and creased. Each door she knocked at ended the same way, polite, courteous, and with a note of finality. Once she explained termination. No one would overlook it. 3 weeks later, money gone, she pawned her wedding ring. It felt like selling a piece of herself, but Elias needed medicine more than jewelry. Winter passed into early spring. A storm raged outside a dim gas station bathroom. Maria knelt beside Elias, inhaler in her hand. "Just breathe," she urged. His chest heaved, his breath high-pitched and shallow. She counted to 10 with him, steadying each pause like a prayer. He nodded trustingly. Maria held him tight, whispers of courage filling her throat until tears blurred her sight. A gentle voice outside cracked the metal door. "You okay in there?" It was Carol, the attendant, with a blanket. She let them stay, and Maria scrubbed floors overnight in exchange for refuge. Bleach stung, mops scraped, but each dollar she earned bought a few more hours of safety and a pocketful of hope. In that cramped restroom, in the harsh glare of a flickering light, Maria tucked Elia's into folds of an old blanket. "You did so good today," she whispered. He murmured, "I love you, Mama." She blinked back tears, settling his head more comfortably. Then she left the room, mop in hand, to earn the next breath he would take. Morning came, pale and steady. Maria, exhausted beyond measure, stepped out. She still had resumes folded inside her coat, worn but determined. She walked to the train stop. A neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, met her there. Elder's eyes softened as she handed Maria a flyer. "Cleaning company," she said quietly. "They hire without asking too many questions. They understand." Maria stared at the flyer as though it might vanish. "It's not glamorous, but it's steady," Mrs. Alvarez said. "You and Elias, this could work." The next day, they took 2 buses across town, arrive at a gray building marked Solana Services. Inside, modest lobby, lemon-scented air, bland posters. Maria sat in a plastic chair, pen shaking. She filled out the application, "Ever been terminated?" and checked yes. Elias coughed. Maria held him. Pen paused. Then she checked the box again. It was truth or a barrier. At that moment, a man entered the lobby, Bruce Morneau. Middle-aged, kind eyes with silver flecks, hair streaked with gray. He paused, looked at Maria and Elias. Something flickered behind his glance, recognition, memory. He nodded, then moved on. Maria finished the form and left, expecting nothing. But the next day, Phil buzzed. "We'd like to offer you a part-time custodial position," Alina, the supervisor, said kindly. "We also can't provide formal child care, but we have a break room. Your son can stay there safe." A wave of relief crashed through Maria. She hugged the phone, voice thick with gratitude. That afternoon, they came together, Maria in uniform, gloves on, scrubbing floors. Elias sat quietly in the tiled break room, crayons in hand, drawing superheroes. Maria worked, aches in every muscle, but she felt seen for the first time in weeks. At midday, Bruce entered the break room and gave her a small nod of acknowledgement. No pity, just recognition. Maria replied with a soft thank you. She picked up her mop again. Days passed. Small kindnesses followed. A box of colored pencils left in the break room. A stuffed lion. Inside Elia's sketches, superheroes rose again. Maria discovered them, surprised and joyful, her breath coming easier for a moment. She wondered who left them, but didn't ask. In his office, Bruce had watched quietly. He remembered his own mother, barn cleaner, struggling in silence, sneaking him into cupboards while she cleaned hotel floors at night. Years later, he achieved business success, but never forgot those nights. Later, raindrops pounded the lobby. Maria left work holding Elias. He was cold and exhausted. Suddenly, A large umbrella descended over them, steady, silent shield. Bruce, no one who tries that hard to do the right thing should walk in the rain, he said softly. Then he turned and walked back in. Maria stood there, stunned. Small action, big gesture, life changing. Over time, Bruce continued hot chocolate on cold nights, fresh fruit, a helping hand. Maria and Elias found steady work, steady breathing, and for the first time, a sense of belonging. At Solana's annual gathering, Bruce told everyone, "My own mother was a janitor. She cleaned at night. No one saw her or appreciated her. I saw Maria." The crowd hushed. Applause filled the room as Maria was promoted to supervising custodian. Elias smiled. Bruce announced a scholarship for Elias' schooling. Maria's tears welled, but not tears of defeat. They were tears of validation. Then one evening, atop the building's rooftop at sunset, Bruce offered Maria a simple silver bracelet engraved always. "I cannot promise forever or easy," he said gently, "but I promise to always stand with you and Elias." Always. Maria accepted it without a word. The bracelet slipped on. It fit. From that moment, they were a family not formed by fate, but chosen each day. In the glow of city lights below, Elias ran to them, calling Maria his superhero. She laughed a full, bright laugh that echoed softly around that rooftop. And in that moment, Maria realized she didn't need a perfect ending, only this beginning. The beginning of a family built from resilience, kindness, and quiet faith. The next day, Maria Lopez stepped into the modest headquarters of Solana Services with Elias beside her. Her backpack held gloves, sanitizer, and a lunchbox packed with rice and beans. Her hands smelled faintly of lemon and bleach even before the shift began. Alina, her supervisor, greeted her kindly. "We don't have much," she said, "but we take care of our people." She showed Maria the utility closet, the mop sinks, and the supplies cart. At the far end of the hall was the employee break room, a faded green couch, a wobbly mini fridge, and a tiny television that still played DVDs. That's where Elias would stay, tucked under a knitted blanket Maria had found in the shelter weeks ago. The shift was hard. Maria scrubbed tiles until her arms ached, emptied trash bins that smelled like yesterday's regret, and wiped windows until her own reflection stared back at her, tired but upright. Through the hallway window, she saw him again, Bruce Morneau, the man from the lobby. This time, he slowed his walk when he passed. He didn't speak, just a simple nod. Not superior, not obligatory, just acknowledgement. Maria didn't know who he was, not exactly. But something about his presence made her stand a little straighter. Each afternoon after that, she settled Elias into the break room before starting her shift. He curled up with crayons and sketch paper, drawing stick figure superheroes and crooked hearts. Every hour, Maria would peek in, kneel beside him, and brush back his curls. "You okay, baby?" she'd whisper. Elias always nodded, too tired to talk, but never too tired to search her eyes for comfort. And she gave it silently, with a soft kiss on his forehead. One Wednesday, as she entered the break room for her routine check, she stopped cold. Elias sat upright, his eyes wide. On the table in front of him was a new box of colored pencils, two thick comic books, and a small stuffed lion soft fur, one ear tilted slightly, and a smile stitched just off-center. "Mama, where did this come from?" Elias asked. Maria blinked. I don't know," she said, stepping closer. She picked up the colored pencils, still sealed. She flipped them over as if some label would explain everything. "Nothing. Can I keep them?" Elias asked, hope shining in his voice. Maria nodded, breath caught. "Yes, baby, of course." Later, during break, she asked the others, "Did someone leave these in the break room for my son?" Everyone shook their heads. Alina shrugged. "Maybe it was someone from upstairs. I don't know. But it's sweet, isn't it?" Maria murmured, thanks to no one in particular. But something inside her warmed. Down the hallway, unseen behind a slightly ajar office door, Bruce stood still. He'd passed the break room moments before. He had seen the way Elias reached for the pencils with trembling hands. He had seen Maria kneel beside her son, her eyes glimmering, her hands gentle even in fatigue. And he remembered. He remembered his own mother working midnight shifts at a motel, hiding him in utility closets when childcare fell through. He remembered the bitter cold of linoleum floors, the sound of her humming lullabies while scrubbing sinks. And he remembered, just as clearly, the one Christmas Eve when someone had left him a toy dinosaur on a laundry cart, a gesture so small it had redrawn the map of his childhood. Bruce hadn't planned to intervene, but now he couldn't not. That night, Maria sat beside Elias as he drew a superhero with curly hair and a lion by his side. She leaned her head against the wall and whispered, "Someone's watching over us." Elias looked up like a guardian angel. Maria smiled, maybe. The next day, the supply closet smelled of disinfectant and cardboard. Elias was lying on a folded towel, flushed with fever. Maria knelt beside him, twisting a cleaning rag into a makeshift puppet. "Senor Sock is here to save the day," she said in a high-pitched voice, dancing the sock across the blanket. Elias giggled through his raspy breaths. Outside the closet, Bruce paused. He hadn't meant to stop, but the sound of Elias laughing rooted him in place. Through the crack in the door, he saw Maria, knees bruised, arms weary, hair pinned messily beneath her cap, but smiling, still finding a way to bring joy, still choosing laughter over defeat. Bruce turned away, throat tight. That night, he stared at the ceiling for a long time, not from exhaustion, from memory. He remembered how tired his mother must have been, how she never said so, how she made puppets from socks too. 3 nights later, thunder cracked the sky. Rain flooded the parking lot. As Maria exited the side door, Elias rapped against her chest. A large umbrella opened silently beside her. Bruce held it. He didn't speak, just walked beside her across the slick pavement, rain pelting down around them, creating a quiet world beneath the umbrella. At the edge of the lot, he stopped. No one who tries this hard to do the right thing deserves to walk in the rain, he said softly. Then he handed her the umbrella and walked back toward the building without waiting for thanks. From that moment, Maria started noticing him more. How he always arrived early, how he asked employees about their families, how he passed by the break room just a moment longer than necessary. She began to understand that kindness wasn't always loud. Sometimes it walked beside you in silence. Sometimes it left gifts without names. A week later, Elias wandered into the office, holding a piece of paper. Bruce looked up from his desk. The boy stood before him, tiny hands extended. "This is for you," Elias said. Bruce unfolded it carefully. A drawing childlike but clear. A man holding an umbrella over a woman and child in the rain. Above it, "Thank you, Mr. Bruce. You're like a quiet superhero." Bruce swallowed. His throat wouldn't move. "Your mama says people like you save the day without making noise," Elias added. Bruce ruffled his hair gently. "I'll keep it safe," he said. And he did. He taped the picture inside his office cabinet. That night, he placed a small labeled inhaler inside Maria's locker. No name, just a note for the breaths that matter most. He arranged with Alina to cover Maria and Elias' lunch for the next month, anonymously. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He was trying to repay a kindness long ago from a woman with tired eyes and infinite love, the kind of woman Maria was now. The building buzzed with quiet energy that Friday. Folded chairs lined the warehouse floor. A small banner, Solana Services Anniversary, 12 years strong, hung crookedly from the rafters, its colors slightly faded but proud. Employees filtered in custodians, clerks, drivers. English mingled with Spanish. Maria stood at the back in her cleanest uniform. Elias stood beside her, slightly too big shirt buttoned carefully, pressed and loaned by Mrs. Alvarez. Maria didn't expect anything. She never had. Bruce stepped onto the small stage, the mic slightly too low for his tall frame. The chatter settled. "Thank you all for being here," he began. "Solana wasn't built on money. It was built by people. People who understand what it means to struggle and still show up." He scanned the crowd. His eyes landed on Maria. "I want to tell you a story." The room stilled. No one shuffled. No phones rang. "When I was a child," Bruce continued, "my mother was a janitor. She worked night shifts. She would hide me in mop closets because we couldn't afford childcare. She scrubbed floors in silence, and no one noticed her." He paused, swallowed, his voice softened. "A few weeks ago, I saw a young mother doing the same thing." The crowd turned instinctively toward Maria. Tired, overworked, loving her son with every breath she had. She reminded me of my mother. She reminded me of everything this company stands for. He turned fully now. And that's why I am proud to say, effective immediately, Maria Lopez is being promoted to supervising custodian. Gasp, then applause, then something louder cheers. People stood. Some clapped with wet eyes. Elena wiped away tears openly. Maria's mouth fell open. Her eyes darted to Elia's, who was now beaming up at her. And Bruce continued, Solana Services will also be providing a full educational scholarship for Elias Lopez from today through college. Because no child should carry the weight of their parents' struggle alone. Maria's knees buckled slightly. She felt Elias slip his hand into hers. She wasn't crying because of the promotion or even the scholarship. She was crying because, for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. Bruce stepped down from the stage, weaving past clapping hands. He stopped in front of her. He didn't say anything, just looked at her. And in his gaze, Maria saw everything: gratitude, recognition, and something unspoken. She nodded. Wordless, he smiled. Wordless. That moment said more than any speech could. Maria's first day as supervisor began before dawn. Her new shirt carried a stitched name tag. Maria Lopez, supervisor. The first time she saw it, she nearly cried. Now she wore it with pride. Her walk was steadier, her instructions clearer. She was still cleaning floors, but now she was also lifting others with her. She didn't stop working hard. She worked harder. But now she didn't have to work alone. And Elias, he changed too. His new school had real books, real art supplies, teachers who knew his name. He started to smile more. His laughter, once rare, now came easily. Sometimes Maria would pass by the break room and see something that made her heart ache in the best way. Bruce sitting across from Elias, a chess board between them. He wasn't good at it, and he knew it. Elias laughed every time Bruce made a silly move. Other times, Bruce would drop a comic book on the couch. Found this lying around, he'd say, pretending it was nothing. Elias would squeal and jump into his arms. Maria would watch from the hallway, arms crossed, smiling despite herself. She and Bruce didn't talk about what was happening between them, but something had shifted. When they passed in the hallway, his glance lingered a second longer. When he asked, "How was your day?" it was never small talk. And when she answered, he truly listened. They were not rushing toward love. They were quietly healing. One Thursday evening, rain came fast and fierce. Thunder cracked the sky. Maria stayed late training a new staffer. By the time she clocked out, the building was empty. As she approached Bruce's office, something caught her eye. A folded raincoat, brand new, navy blue. Beside it, a takeout container, steam curling gently beneath the lid. A note lay on top. "Thank you for not giving up." Maria stared. She turned her head. Bruce stood at the far end of the hallway. He didn't move, just leaned against the doorframe. He didn't speak, didn't explain, just nodded, a soft smile on his lips. She clutched the raincoat to her chest, and in that silence, something opened wide inside her. It wasn't a rescue. It wasn't romance. It was something stronger. It was recognition. The rooftop was quiet. Far above the humming rhythm of the city, the Sunday sky spilled orange and pink across the concrete. The sun, softened by twilight, cast golden stripes across the terrace. Maria stepped out slowly, the glass door clicking shut behind her. She squinted into the fading light. There he was. Bruce stood near the edge, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on the horizon. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You said it was important," Maria said softly. Bruce turned. That familiar smile, the quiet kind, the one that always felt like it held a secret, appeared briefly. "It is," he replied. They stood side by side. Two people shaped by survival. Two people still learning how to live. Bruce reached into his jacket pocket. No velvet box, no ceremony, just a small silver bracelet, thin, elegant, understated. He opened it, revealing a single word engraved on the inside. "Always." "I'm not proposing," Bruce said gently. "I don't have a speech. I don't even have a plan." He stepped closer. "I just want to say this." His voice was low but steady. "I can't promise forever. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I can promise this." He extended the bracelet, his fingers shaking just slightly. "I will always be someone you and Elias can lean on, whenever you need me, however you need me, even if it's just to sit beside you in silence." Maria looked down at the bracelet, then at him. Not a knight, not a savior, just someone real, someone who saw her. She didn't say anything, not yet. Instead, she reached out, took the bracelet, and held it. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Firm, certain, not because she needed to be rescued, but because someone finally stood beside her and didn't ask her to hide. She rested her head against his chest. "Thank you," she whispered. Bruce closed his eyes and held her close. No fireworks, no big declarations, just stillness, just steady warmth. A moment that felt like breath after drowning. Then, Mama, Elias came bounding onto the rooftop, cheeks flushed from running, hair wild in the wind. He froze when he saw them embracing, then grinned. "You're smiling, Mama," he said breathlessly. "You look like a superhero now." Maria laughed. A clear, honest sound that broke through every cracked part of her chest. She opened one arm, and Elias ran into it without hesitation. Bruce knelt beside them, pulling the boy into the circle. And for a moment, they simply held each other, three hearts stitched together by hope, by choice, by something deeper than blood or vows. They didn't need to say it. This was family, and it had grown not from grand gestures, but from shared silence, from showing up, from staying. The next morning, Maria adjusted her collar in the mirror. The name tag, Maria Lopez, supervisor, gleamed softly, not like a medal, but like proof. She still cleaned, still supervised, still walked the halls with a clipboard and aching feet. But now, something in her was different. She felt seen, she felt heard, and she carried her name like it meant something. Elia's world had changed too. At school, he found his name on the cubby. He found books that smelled like adventure, teachers who listened, classmates who laughed at his jokes. He began breathing easier, not just literally, emotionally. He no longer flinched when thunder came, no longer clutched his chest when someone raised their voice. He started drawing new heroes. One had glasses and a mop. One had curls and a lion by his side. Most days, Bruce still stopped by the break room, sometimes with cookies, sometimes with comic books, sometimes with nothing at all, just a tired smile and a question that meant more than it sounded like. How was your day? Maria didn't always know what to say, but she always answered, because now she wasn't speaking into the void. She was being heard. They still didn't name what was growing between them. They didn't need to. When Bruce brushed her hand accidentally and didn't pull away, when Maria saved him her last cup of strong coffee, when Elias drew 3 stick figures, holding hands under the sun, they all knew something had begun, not fireworks, not fantasy, but something rooted, real, something built the way trust is built, one quiet day at a time. The rain returned 3 days later, not the kind that tapped politely on windows. No, this was a downpour, furious, wild, untamed. Thunder shook the sky as if some giant above were trying to remind the world of its weight. It was nearly 7 o'clock p.m. Most of the staff had gone home. Maria pushed open the side door, her arms wrapped around Elia's. His fever had returned. His face was pale again, and his breath came in shallow, wheezing pulls. She had no umbrella, only the same old coat she had worn for months, its sleeves frayed, its zipper broken. She stepped into the storm anyway, and then a shadow beside her, a large umbrella, open, silent. Bruce. He didn't say anything, just walked beside her, matching her pace. Underneath the canopy of black fabric, the world was strangely still. The wind raged, the rain screamed, but inside that small circle, there was only quiet. Elias peeked out from Maria's coat. Bruce looked down at him. The boy's cheeks were flushed, his curls wet. When they reached the edge of the lot, Bruce stopped. He turned to Maria. No one who tries this hard to do the right thing deserves to walk in the rain, he said. Then he handed her the umbrella and turned back toward the building. Maria stood frozen. That night, she couldn't sleep. Not from worry, not from exhaustion, from something else. The feeling of being seen again. A week passed. Elias wandered into Bruce's office with a drawing. A tall man with an umbrella, a woman holding a child, rain pouring, but they were smiling. Above it, in messy block letters, "Thank you, Mr. Bruce. You're like a quiet superhero." Bruce didn't speak. He unfolded it, hands trembling slightly. "I'll keep it safe," he said, and he meant it. He taped it inside the cabinet, next to old contracts and forgotten invoices, because this mattered more than all of them. Later that week, Maria found something in her locker, a small inhaler. Taped to it was a note, "For the breaths that matter most." She clutched it for a long moment before placing it in Elia's backpack. She didn't need to ask who had left it. Some things didn't require confirmation. Then came the night of the lightning storm. The break room was almost empty. Elia's was curled on the couch, sketchbook in hand. Maria was still wiping counters. Bruce walked in, carrying a small paper bag. "I thought Elias might like these," he said casually. Maria smiled. "More cookies?" she asked. "Different ones," he replied. He said chocolate chip and caramel are his new favorite. Elias peeked into the bag and lit up. "They're still warm," he said, eyes shining. Maria turned to Bruce. She studied his face, the tired lines, the gentleness behind his eyes. "I've always wondered," she said, "why do you care so much about us?" Bruce looked down. The amusement in his eyes faded. His smile thinned. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because I was Elias." Maria blinked. Bruce continued, voice distant. "And my mother, she was you. Strong, stubborn, always tired. But she never gave up." He looked up. "She used to sneak me into hotel closets while she cleaned night shifts. I remember sleeping on towels, listening to her hum lullabies while she scrubbed bathroom floors." Maria didn't speak. She didn't have to. For the first time, she didn't just see Bruce as the man who quietly helped her. She saw him as someone who had once been held by hands just as raw, just as determined. He had not just remembered her pain. He had lived it, and he had come back not to fix it, but to stand beside it. The air between them changed. It wasn't romantic. It was more than that. It was recognition. At the annual company celebration, Bruce took the stage again. This time, he didn't talk about profits or performance. He told a story about a woman who scrubbed floors in silence, about a little boy hidden in supply closets, about how compassion isn't weakness, but power. When he turned to Maria and Elias, he said, "This company will carry Elias all the way to college, because no child should carry the weight of their parents' struggle alone." The applause was thunderous. Maria stood frozen. Elias grabbed her hand. And in that moment, the years of loneliness cracked open. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was being lifted. Later that night, she found a raincoat on the hallway bench. Deep blue, brand new. A takeout container sat beside it. Still warm, chicken and rice. A note, "Thank you for not giving up." She picked it up, looked down the hall. There he was, Bruce. He didn't speak, just smiled, soft, sure. She held the coat to her chest and knew this wasn't a handout. This wasn't pity. This was someone saying, "I see you, and I'm not going anywhere." The rooftop was warm. The late afternoon sun spilled honeyed light across the concrete, soft and slow, like the world had finally decided to breathe. Maria stepped outside. Bruce stood near the ledge, his silhouette outlined by the golden sky. She walked toward him. "You said it was important," she said. "It is," he replied. There was no tension in the air, only something gentle, something waiting. Bruce reached into his coat pocket. No velvet box, just a small silver bracelet, thin, worn smooth at the edges. He turned it over, revealing the engraving inside. Always. "I'm not proposing," he said. "Not with rings or promises I can't keep." He looked at her, his eyes unwavering. "But I want to give you something. A truth. A vow in the only way I know how." He held it out. "I can't promise easy. I can't promise forever. But I can promise this." He took a breath. "Whenever you need someone to stand beside you, I'll be there. Quietly, fully, always." Maria didn't speak. She reached out, took the bracelet in her hand, then wrapped her arms around him, slowly, deliberately. Not because she needed rescuing, because he had always seen her not as someone broken, not as someone fragile, but as someone worth choosing. She rested her head against his chest and whispered, "Thank you." Behind them, a voice called out, "Mama." Elias burst onto the rooftop, his curls bouncing, cheeks pink. He skidded to a stop, grinning from ear to ear. "You're smiling, Mama," he said. "You look like a superhero now." Maria laughed, a real laugh, full, clear. She opened one arm. Elias ran into it without hesitation. Bruce knelt beside them, pulling the boy into the fold. 3 hearts, 1 story, no wedding, no grand declarations, just stillness and love in its quietest form. Weeks passed. Maria still scrubbed floors, but now she gave orders too. She managed schedules, resolved team issues, coached new hires. She wore her badge with a new kind of pride, not because it gave her power, because it reminded her how far she had come and who had walked beside her. Elias flourished. He brought home drawings of galaxies and superheroes and wild dreams. He played chess with Bruce in the break room. Sometimes he won. Sometimes he let Bruce win. They didn't talk about what they were. They didn't name it, because they didn't need to. What they shared was already written between the lines. In the cookies Bruce brought without asking, in the way Maria poured him coffee before he even arrived, in Elias' quiet habit of calling Bruce Mr. B like it meant protector. One Thursday, after a long day, Maria walked toward the exit. The hallway was empty. By the door sat a folded raincoat, the same blue one Bruce had given her months ago. She picked it up, smiling. Inside was a note. "You don't need saving. You never did. But I'll be here anyway. Always." She didn't cry. She just exhaled, then walked down the stairs, Elias at her side, into the gentle dusk. Some people think love needs declarations, but the truest kind of love, it's built from lunches quietly paid for, inhalers quietly delivered, rain quietly shared. It's found in storage closets and rooftop sunsets and bracelets with one word engraved. Always. That was all she needed.